Welcome to the IDP Plus Touchdown Props Podcast. It's Super Wild Card Weekend, and I've got a treat for you. In just a moment, I'll be breaking down my favorite touchdown props for the first week of the NFL playoffs. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the IDP Plus Touchdown Props Podcast, where every week I've just been ultimately laying out a buffet style of players, situations, streaks, matchups, in regards to touchdown scores on any given week. For the entire season, I've just kind of laid out anywhere from what it started out at 3 to like up to 15. Just kind of depends on the week and what kind of matchups and things that I'm seeing in the books and kind of how generous I'm feeling with my research. So ultimately, this is more or less just research I've done to place bets of my own, and I'm just kind of laying out. I've done all the work, done all the research, found all of the things that you need to know, and I'm more or less just laying it out for you, so you guys don't have to take that time to do it yourself. So if any of these strike a chord with you, feel free to put a little something on any one of these guys or parlay a couple. I'll be doing a little bit of that myself. Again, I just want to remind everybody these aren't even really suggestions, just more or less research I've done for myself, and I'm just laying it out for you guys. So let's have fun with this, bet responsibly, let's set a limit and stick to it. For help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into this thing. We're going to start off with the running backs this week, as we always do. We've got Kyren Williams on the menu first this week. Playing in a Monday Night Football game with an anytime touchdown coming in at minus 130, plays the Minnesota Vikings. This isn't necessarily hasn't been historically a great matchup for running backs this season, but the Vikings have been pretty generous the last few weeks. Namely, the last 5 weeks of the season, they allowed 8 touchdowns to opposing running backs. They let Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier score in their game a few weeks back. They let 2 Green Bay running backs score, and then Gibbs had 4 alone in Week 18. That was nuts. So there is vulnerabilities in the rushing game, when you're playing the Vikings, at least as of late. So this could be a big opportunity for Kyren Williams to he's another top-end RB who can find the end zone against the Vikings. They just can't seem to stop these stud running backs. And by the looks of it, the last several weeks, they can't stop much of anything in the run game. So they either got to clamp down, or Kyren's going to have a big game. And he only has 4 games all year where he hasn't scored a touchdown. So I like those odds, especially considering the fact that the Vikings are a lot worse in the secondary. So I think this is a game where, yes, of course, the Rams are going to look to use Kyren as they always do, but particularly when Puka Nacua breaks off a big player, I imagine Kupp will have a couple himself, and they get within the 20-yard line. That's where the Rams are just going to grind it out with Kyren Williams until they get to the end zone. That's what they've done all year. I mentioned earlier that he's only got 4 games this year without a touchdown. When they get in the 20, they pound it in with Kyren, and he's very successful and has a nose for the end zone. So minus 130 isn't a huge payout, but considering the state of running back bets for touchdowns lately, where they've been upward, or they've dropped down to minus 200 sometimes. This is looking pretty good overall for a guy who's got like 14 touchdowns on this season. It's ridiculous. So I like Kyren Williams for an anytime touchdown against the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football. We've got just two running backs this week. Like I said, the odds aren't necessarily favorable for running backs so far at this point in the season, but we've got a couple here that we can exploit, especially in some matchups where they could take advantage. So we've got Josh Jacobs here up next with anytime touchdown at minus 150 against the Rams this week. This is one where the matchup doesn't necessarily favor the position again, but this isn't a typical gamer player. Much like Kyren Williams, Josh Jacobs has been just great this season, and the Rams have given up 3 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks, all to Philadelphia running backs. So that's where I say this isn't necessarily a great matchup, but the last 3 weeks, the best running back they've played is Saquon Barkley, and that's by far. I think they played some pretty unsuccessful or consistent offenses. Jets offense, yes, they got Brees Hall, but they're just not consistent. They can't really push the ball downfield on a regular basis. So teams like that, they can do okay against, but it seems to be that the top end running backs, much like Jacobs has proven he can be, have just kind of torched them. So nonetheless, Jacobs has been on a tear this year since week 8. He's actually had 14 rushing touchdowns since week 8. That's 14 rushing touchdowns is impressive for an entire season. He has that just since week 8. He's been Mr. Reliable for the Green Bay Packers in the back half of this season. And not to mention, we've seen Jordan Love pretty well struggle in the passing game, too. Josh Jacobs actually has 4 more rushing touchdowns than Jordan Love has passing touchdowns since week 8. So, odds are tipping in Jacobs' favor to find the end zone over the passing game to find a groove. So this kind of tells you where the strengths lie for the Green Bay Packers offense, and I think they will be relying heavily on Josh Jacobs to cap off however many drives they can and keep pushing the ball downfield to maintain some long drives in this one and give themselves a chance to score. So, like Josh Jacobs to score this week, minus 115. We'll get into the pass catchers now. Wide receiver specifically, we'll start off with Nico Collins, anytime touchdown, coming in at a nice juicy plus 145 against the Chargers in week 1, or the first super wild card weekend. The Chargers defense has actually given up 7 wide receiver touchdowns in the final 4 weeks of the year. They let Jacoby Myers score, Demario Davis. They let 2 Broncos wide receivers, I think Bailey and Burton, if I'm not mistaken. Mike Evans scored 2. Jalen McMillan got 1. So they've allowed quite a bit of production in the end zone for opposing running backs. So this is a very vulnerable defense in the pass game, and Houston has doesn't really have too many pass catchers that can even come close to the kind of production that we've seen from Nico Collins this year. So he's often the first one to punch it in on any given week that he does score. And the Houston offense has not been very productive as of late. So, given the stakes in this one, I'd bet they get it in gear and look to turn things around on the back of Nico Collins. That's going to give them, if they can put points on the board, then they can really kind of control this game. So, but at the same time, the Chargers aren't going to go down. So Houston knows they're going to have to put points on the board and then turn around and play some good defense. So I anticipate that they're going to be looking to get Nico Collins fired up early and often in this one. And if we're looking at plus 145 for an anytime touchdown, I like those odds a lot. Next on our plate for the buffet, we've got Scary Terry McLaurin with an anytime touchdown coming in at plus 110 against the Buccaneers this week. Tampa Bay has given up the 10th most wide receiver touchdowns all year with 18, specifically 6 in the last 4 weeks of the season. This secondary is no bueno in holding wide receiver production. And also during this year, they have allowed the 7th most wide receivers to opposing running, or to the 7th most yards to wide receivers this year too. So Terry McLaurin has been insane with Jaden Daniels at quarterback this year. He's got 13 touchdowns on the year, 4 games with 2 touchdowns. So McLaurin's locked in, and Washington has a great chance to knock off Tampa Bay in the first round of Super Wild Card Weekend. And to do that, they will need to get Scary Terry going yet again. He had an awesome touchdown in the back of the end zone last week. I think Tampa Bay is a great opportunity and a great matchup for Terry to find the end zone. Again, this is an awesome chance for Washington to knock them off in the first round. So I like Scary Terry for an anytime touchdown, plus 110. Now we've got Marvin Mims. This is our next wide receiver play, and the last wide receiver play I have for you this week. His anytime touchdown comes in at a nice plus 240 against the Buffalo Bills this week. Buffalo's given up 175 yards a game to wide receivers in the final few weeks of the year. I know that the last week of the season they didn't really play. They've still given up 175 yards a game on average. 6 touchdowns, 2 wide receivers in that time as well. And on the flip side, when we take a look at Marvin Mims, he's been a revelation for Denver, especially in the last couple of weeks where he scored 4 touchdowns. This may be a long shot for him to keep the streak going or continue but the conditions are right in this one. It's a big game, a vulnerable defense. He's not really the focal point of this offense, so I think that Buffalo would rather let Mims run loose than something. They're going to make Denver try to beat them with Marvin Mims and Bo Nix and try to keep Sutton out of this game, I would imagine. So there's some serious juice on this one. Denver's rolling. They've got great coaching that will give them a good chance to compete in this one. They'll need to get Mims involved. So I like Mims at plus 240 this week. All right, let's roll into a tight end. One that I like in particular, Mark Andrews. You might notice from the thumbnail this week comes in at plus 150, a nice plus 150 against the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. Pittsburgh's allowed 4 tight end touchdowns in the final 5 weeks of the season. They let Travis Kelce, they let Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely score, and they've also let David Njoku score 5 weeks ago as well. So there's a lot of opportunity for tight ends in this one specifically, just right off the top. And then when you add the fact that Zay Flowers is out in this game, I think that tight ends are only going to see that much more attention. So I think Andrews started the season pretty sluggish, but get this. Since he scored his first touchdown of the season in week 6, he's only had 2 games the rest of the season where he hasn't scored. So it's no secret that Lamar loves Mark Andrews, and I anticipate him to be the first one that Lamar looks to in the end zone to score a touchdown. So I think this game is going to feature a heavy dose of Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and Derrick Henry. So the fact that we've given 1.5 times your money on a Mark Andrews tight end a Mark Andrews touchdown, and he's only not done this twice since he started scoring touchdowns and picked it up. I like Mark Andrews this week. I like him a lot. Let's get into a couple of quarterbacks. We've got some great quarterbacks for some anytime touchdown odds in the playoffs. We've got Josh Allen starting us off here at minus 125 for an anytime touchdown against the Denver Broncos. Minus 125 is not as great as he's been all year, but I think because the quarterbacks are quarterbacks and it's not all that common for them to score rushing touchdowns, we're still get pretty decent odds on these, I think, the rest of the season. So Josh Allen at minus 125, he's a walking bomb. The dude can go off on any given week, and he could go off on every week if he wanted to, especially in big-time situations like Super Wildcard Weekend. So now he gets Denver in round 1, who've allowed 2 rushing touchdowns in the last 4 weeks of the season. They let Joe Burrow, of all people, and then Anthony Richardson score. Josh Allen, on the other side, has from week 11 to week 17. So in that little stretch there, he scored 9 rushing touchdowns in those 7 games. 9 rushing touchdowns. Given the inconsistency of the pass game in Buffalo, coupled with the prowess of the Denver secondary this season, I would say this game will feature a lot of rushing, especially on the Buffalo side. It's going to be a lot of James Cook, and it's going to be a lot of Josh Allen. Not going to say they're not going to pass the ball, but there's not really a consistent pass catcher. They can spread the ball around, but they don't particularly have their success stem from the pass game. It comes off of the back of the running back and Josh Allen's legs. So Allen, being the dude himself, MVP, will find a way into the end zone this week. I have confidence. Minus 125 there. Now we've got Jalen Hurts coming in at minus 125 for an anytime touchdown. He plays the Green Bay Packers this week. Green Bay is not particularly a great matchup for Hurts in the rushing game here, but I'm not all that worried about that because I'm not all that worried that Green Bay has only allowed 1 quarterback touchdown all year, because Hurts is pretty well matchup proof 75% of the time. In 75% of games this year, he has scored a touchdown. That means only 4 games has he not scored a touchdown this year. And yes, I'm taking out the bye week, and I'm taking out week 18 where he only played a handful of snaps. So 4 games all year where he hasn't scored a rushing touchdown. He's got a whopping 14 rushing touchdowns and sees more work inside the red zone than even Saquon Barkley, the record-setting running back this year. Not necessarily, well, probably for Philly, but he was chasing that record and chasing the leading rushing record. Got over 2,000 yards, and Jalen Hurts still sees more work in the red zone and in close. So let's jump on this while we can and take advantage of another quarterback who loves nothing more than to find the end zone. Jalen Hurts, minus 125. Let's cash it. All right, now that's going to wrap up the bulk of our show. I've got a handful of honorable mentions here. If you guys like, I'll throw out a couple of little things here. I've got Bucky Irving, minus 145. It's not very tasty, but he's got a pretty good matchup. The Commanders have given up 5 running back touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. So 5 touchdowns to running backs to end the season. Tampa Bay run game has been rolling. They've got over 30 attempts per game. Irving has been scoring here and there, so I bet he gets first crack at the end zone if they can get it in close. I also like Jalen McMillan in this game. I just really mainly like the idea that Washington's going to have Marshawn Lattimore out there, and Lattimore and Evans have this history, man, where Evans just can't get anything going when he's got Lattimore across the field from him. Sometimes they'll just get themselves thrown out and get in a fight too. So he gets into Evans' head, and I imagine that's going to be their focus point of trying to limit the Tampa Bay offense, is trying to limit Mike Evans in the passing game. So I would imagine that Washington is just going to look to make Tampa Bay beat them via the rookie running back and rookie wide receiver. So big chances for Jalen McMillan and Bucky Irving in this one. And considering that Baker Mayfield has been just absolutely like MVP level performances all year long. Didn't get it, of course, but he's been playing his rear off. So I think this is a great opportunity for these guys. I also like I just wanted to point out that Pat Freiermuth quietly has 4 touchdowns in the last 6 games. So I think this could be an opportunity where he might be one to find the end zone while Baltimore looks to limit Wilson and Pickens. Freiermuth hasn't just gotten loose on any given week, so I don't imagine he's going to be someone that the Baltimore Ravens look to limit in this one. So he might just have a good game, but Baltimore's generally pretty good against tight ends. So then I want to cap things off by talking a little bit about DJ Chark. Mainly just want to throw out his odds are plus 300. He scored last week. He gets a few targets in and around the end zone. So he's got a big body. Herbert's on fire in the passing game. DJ Chark maintains a low profile. So I think this could be a sneaky one where maybe they just tell DJ Chark to go find an open spot in the end zone and use this body to go catch the ball. So he's historically been a touchdown shark. So if he can get going in this one, he might find the end zone. I'm not going to say he's going to have a big role, but there's a chance. The odds are nice here. So just wanted to throw that out there to everybody. So that's going to wrap things up for Super Wildcard Weekend of the IDP Plus Touchdown Props podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. For those who have returned, thank you for sticking with me this year. For those that are new, I hope you find something that you find valuable. If anything that I laid out here for y'all struck a chord, let me know in the comments. I like this one. I like that one. Oh, I'm looking at this one. Let's chat it up in the comments. This is all supposed to be fun. It's been a great time for me this year. And again, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. So good luck this week. And I hope I can help put a little bit extra cash in your pockets this week. So good luck again. And we'll see you back next week for round 2 of the playoffs.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.